Humans are part of nature, but humans have become disconnected from nature. And I truly feel that the only way that humanity will come back to save the planet is by connecting to themselves.
There are marvels to be discovered within our very own coastal waters that we are only just beginning to understand. The more connected I am with the ocean, the more human I become, the more sensitive and the more self-aware. Because the ocean really doesn't need us as humans, but we need the ocean to survive.
I want to deliver one message here. We need to act today. Not tomorrow, not the day after. Our survival depends on how we act today. My aim is to see that the number of bees is increasing, and my purpose is to leave the world a better place for bees and our future generation.
Sometimes we think that the things we do can't make a big difference, it can't make a big change. The problems that the world are facing are too great. But I do now feel that action is the only way forward. So by taking personal action, these things actually do make a difference and make a change.
Hello, and welcome to Frames of Change, Unveiling the Power of Art and Film in Climate Action. That was the trailer for a film that was directed and produced by Naila Al-Khaja, and we have Naila here with us. Welcome, Naila.
Thank you.
With Naila is Reem Salah, Associate Director of External Relations at the Art Center for NYU Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Reem.
Thank you.
And Reem is also a filmmaker. And we're going to dive into a couple of subjects here, but I want to start with this idea that there is an interrelationship, Naila, between art and science. So I know that film was produced for the Expo, but give me a little sense of when you started to think about that overlap between art and science and how that film came to be.
So it's not an exaggeration to say that this film in particular impacted me and over 240 people, and that's just one film.
Yeah.
So obviously one film can't change the world, but as you said, a collection of them will definitely tweak it to the right place or kind of move it into the right direction. So just to give an example, when I was given this challenge, I was also given another responsibility which I didn't take, which I took very seriously, which is the freedom to create whatever I wanted, as long as it was very true to the story. And I thought this is like any filmmaker's dream, where you don't have to work with an agency, you don't have so many clients, you're literally there to go and find stories in the city. And whenever we hear about climate change and whatnot, it's always about stories outside of the UAE, it's never about stories inside the UAE. So something happened as a byproduct of this film, is we were able to break some stereotypes. For example, if you look at one of the candidates that I found, and I had to fight very hard for him, he's a sheikh, it's his highness. And they're like, obviously he has access to all the money in the world. Why would he be, struggling about this? But once you get to know Sheikh Salem, and I'm sorry he's not here to speak about himself, but once you get to know him, because I was a bit, I had my question marks as well. I thought, I'll go there, kept my skepticism. And I thought, let me just go check out what he does. And he took me into this insane journey of over a few days, over the farm. And you can see he is gung-ho crazy, obsessed about bee preservation. And he's put all his energy, time, he works with his hand from the actual material he buys, the type of bees. He's an expert at this. And has been working so under the shadows for years doing this. Yeah. So I thought he'd be a fantastic candidate to show. So basically, to summarize the film, it was about 3 different characters who lived in the UAE. So a girl followed the pattern from Abu Dhabi, Noura Al-Balushi. So she was an expert on dolphin behavior in terms of ocean danger, if that makes sense. and then he was everything about bees.
Yeah.
And I do want to encourage you to go and buy his products because they're so like beautifully done from the authentic Ras Al Khaimah mountains. So you'll get that kind of strange rocky sense, and like there's a scent. It's amazing. And then the third story, which is Philip, Duncan, who made a vow to himself, and I thought, how will you survive? You're in Dubai. It's like a cosmopolitan place, and you want to live like you're in the Amazon. Good luck. So his vow to himself was a 1-year promise where he'll never enter a supermarket and he'll grow food. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Grow food in the back of his yard and be able to eat just from his own produce. And guess what? It wasn't 100% successful, which is absolutely fine, but I think he was almost 85%, which is really incredible, and that changed how we looked at things. So how do you go and get rice? How do you get oil? So he found a really interesting way of doing that by the old school method of barterships, barter. So I will build you a chair if you give me your rice. By the end of this project, everyone in the sustainable city in Dubai knew Philip and probably found him really annoying. He's like, oh God, he wants more rice. I just don't want another extra chair. But he's so loved by everyone. He was able to do this experiment, and he found ways to grow all the different kind of, greens, produces that wouldn't really see a ground here in the UAE, and he found a way to do that. So he was transformed. I was personally transformed through that process. And I know that my producer, and I'm going to end up, sorry, I know.
No, it's okay.
My producer, Stuart, God bless him, he tried his best to create everything on set that's very kind of friendly, like no plastics, just the basic stuff. But then we took it up a notch, which I'll talk about later, through my first debut feature film, where we actually hired a green producer. I didn't even know there was something called a green producer. They don't wear green suits, but they do. But they do get a stamp of approval where you go anything above 70% gets like a stamp of approval that this production actually did follow, the conduct of
sustainability.
That. Exactly. So this is how this film, and going back to your original question. Art and science, absolutely. So by using emotional intelligence, by following people like Philip, Salim, and Noura, we get to know them as humans. We get to care about their stories. So the less data you have, the more people are engaged. The more data you throw at them, they get bored and they turn off. There is a space and place for data and market intelligence, but not storytelling. Storytelling is very kind of nuanced and human connectivity. And that's when I think things move much further, and we'll bring AI later into this.
Yes, we will. We're going to make sure we're going to end with AI because the next program after this discusses AI and the implications. I want to take a pause here. I know that in your film, you quote Robert Swan, who says, "The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it." And it's fascinating for me that the way you structured this film, it's narrated by the subjects, and they actually feed into one another. So the transitions between one subject to the next, they reference kind of the next person that's coming. So that to me talks to the interconnectivity. So that's part of what we're talking about here, is how do you learn as you go? How does a film like that kind of form in your mind? Does it come in the editing room? Is it something that you set out to do to find these three different people?
Yeah, there was a lot of research. We had to find a lot of stories and then break it down. And I don't know if this happened by accident, but what I thought was a very beautiful accident is that all three of them represented different type of income, different gender, and background. You have the Caucasian guy, you have the a very powerful man, and then you have a girl who's just passionate. So it just literally means you can make a change. It doesn't matter how rich, how poor, what background you come from. Everyone, even with a little, drop in the ocean, can create the ocean, as cliche as that sounds. And I'm transformed through that film because I'm bringing these kind of ethics now into all my productions moving forward, right? So that's important.
That's what I wanted to talk to Reem about too, because Reem's, you have this opportunity here to really get involved in the external relations through NYU Arts. How do you approach that both from the external relations side, but also as an artist yourself?
So thank you for that. I was really inspired by some of the things that you said related to how this impacts us. I work for the Art Center, which is a performing arts center at NYU Abu Dhabi, and basically what we do is we invite residencies in all sorts of performing arts, dance, concerts, theater, and even spoken word. And what's really important about this is we learned something really huge in COVID, or something that we rediscovered is that we need art.
Yes.
We needed to survive, we needed to get inspired. Without it, we will go completely mad. And this reaffirmed the role that we do as an arts organization within the university as well, and within the city of Abu Dhabi, that is really encouraging the infrastructure of arts in the country. Is how do we use art to create an impact? And we, in the case of sustainability, for instance, and climate change, we deal, I work in external relations and I work with partners, and the partners that we work with, we have to have the same, we have to see things in the same way. We have to have the same values, the same ethics when it comes to the topics that we're going to work on for the performances. So a lot of the performances that we bring, and not only this year because of the sustainability year, do talk about this. And one of them is just to see how powerful it is, because we do have documentaries on National Geographic that talk about certain scientific topics related to climate change and nature. But when we see a work of art which is more subjective, the impact is different. And one of the works that we brought was called Holoscenes, and basically it was an 8-hour installation of a big pool in which there are dancers, and it keeps being filled with water as they're doing mundane everyday thing, up to the point where they can't breathe anymore. And that was a very powerful way to speak about the impact of climate change on the water levels and how it impacts everyday life. So it's,
can we see it?
Yes,
can we roll that?
That would be great.
Let's take a look at that.
So this is a project called Holoscenes. We've been working on it since 2011.
The duet is based on a couple getting ready to go out for the evening. All of the scenes in the tank are taken from everyday behavior. Witnessing a person kind of colliding with a large volume of water over and over again.
We wanted to put together the patterns of everyday human behavior with the longer term patterns of our biosphere. What's going on in Iraq, what's going on in Syria has very much to do with just crops and agriculture, and the fact that for almost a decade now there's been a historic drought. In fact, the United States just elected a president who doesn't think that climate change exists, which is the height of absurdity. I would like to repurpose what a spectacle usually is for, which is like confectionery entertainment, and instead make people ask the question, what is that? Why is that? And hopefully, because of the water and the performers, some conversations are started with audience members amongst themselves.
So what's interesting about that, thank you, is that it's abstract enough that you have to bring some of yourself. And you know, some people define art as the distillation of life, and I think you can see that. So talk to me more about why it's so important to go back and forth and bridge the gap between an issue like climate change and make it so kind of visceral and personal.
Lars Jan, who is the creator of this installation, speaks about conversation, and I think what's important is to trigger a conversation. You will see people come. This video was made by one of the audience members who got so inspired, so she came back and she made this video and this interview. So it's just to tell you how impactful it is, just to make you think about things that you see on a daily basis, and you don't think that you are affected by it or that you will be affected by it. And the beauty of the residencies is the conversation not only with the artists but with the artists, and there's a lot of research and science that were put into this performance that are discussed with the audience, and education and working with students, and we work a lot with school students where we send them the material ahead of time. You will be watching this performance, this is the theme of it, and when they come they are ready with questions and then share immediately how this impacted them and how they want to make a change immediately after. So the impact of the conversation as soon as you watch something like this, I think are very important.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting part about this is that those students are going to live with climate change longer than we are. So engaging them earlier, really kind of activating their interest, their curiosity is really important. I mean, when you look at making art, do you have a particular audience in mind? Or are you really just looking at something that the more specific you get, the more universal it is?
I mean, if I don't look at my documentary works, I'm a bit of a schizophrenic. So I do psychological thrillers, horror genres, very dark genres.
Sure.
And then when I do documentaries, I gravitate towards environmental topics. I don't know where that comes from.
That's a good bookend, though.
Yeah.
Because they both elicit emotion,
It's
right?
bloody green.
There you go. No, but I mean, really, they are. They're about a visceral reaction that, you know, that you can count the jumps in a...
Exactly.
You know?
I have the experience of creating fear, right? So that works really well. So yeah, I mean, in my latest film, so last week I was at the Red Sea Film Festival in KSA. I mean, it was just out of this world. I had my world premiere, and I think we're looking into something that's really groundbreaking, which is integrating artificial intelligence in my feature film, and opening, and this is under the umbrella of awareness, and not just awareness, even penetration of markets which don't have the kind of, you know, firepower to expose different documentaries that are being done. So if you look at like Leonardo DiCaprio's, you know, very famous documentary, or any other film that's made, if this new technology we're working on is adapted and injected in all these films, the level of sustainability, because documentaries don't make a lot of money, right? But if you spread them through AI, and I'll explain in a minute how, the level of, you know, financial kind of attractiveness, investors go up, sales go up, marketing goes up, awareness goes up. So it's really a win-win. The only people that lose are voiceover artists, and I'm sorry for them. But on the other scale, the winning is huge. So what we're trying to do is we have joined forces with a company, with Dubai Future Foundation. They're called Camp AI. They've been backed by Roger AT&T, so it's a big thing. They work specifically in the sports domain, where there's a delay of 3 seconds in 150 languages. So we took our film and thought, you know, why don't you apply that to our film?
Sure.
And we have. And I saw the trailer in 27 languages. My jaw dropped, because it's literally your voice, exactly, with the way you cough, your nuances, everything, and like, let's say, most amazing Mandarin. Even with the lip syncing looks okay. Like, it's not your awful dubbing where you look this way, but then you have a very strange Mexican guy speaking on top of you. So this just means, and the quickness, because now it won't take me a year to do that, and a number which I can't afford. Like, imagine dubbing in 150 languages. Imagine the number of voice artists, the you know, aggregation that goes through getting all this content out. It's impossible. But when you have a robot doing this for you, your market penetration will quadruple. This is a massive game changer with AI. I mean, I wish I can show you samples of because I have it in 4 languages now. So my film now will be completely in Chinese, Spanish, Hindi, and German.
Well, what's interesting about that is that by reaching those audiences, you really get to get that feedback. And so most artists are really looking to find the audience, and it's so hard to do.
Correct, yes.
So if it comes with a baked-in audience, do you think that's going to draw more people in? Because we look at it from a storytelling standpoint. We try to really have an impact on the head, the heart, and the hands. We want to activate people to get involved in helping to mitigate climate change.
Yes.
So do you think that can allow it to bridge cultures and really have a...
1000%. Think of it this way, right? Now you have a end film or product, whatever you want to call it, documentary, feature film, that is a game changer, as in like it sheds light to a very important climate topic, and it's done so beautifully. It's emotional, it ticks all the bells, but it's only in English. So now you only have a certain market that will look at it. Now, if you convert that in all these different nuances and languages, and like even India, if I'm not mistaken, has over 300 different dialects. So if you go and tap into all these tapestries, what can happen? Companies, whether they're non-for-profit, government, private, can now take your content and showcase it into villages, showcase it into other rural cities, and showcase it into different, urban places that don't speak. I mean, even today, you go to like Rome, a lot of Italians don't speak English, right? And you need to have films that are dubbed. They'll watch American movies in Italian. So now having it this way will really, the speed of things is like, in the past, you can't afford it, so you don't do it. So that demographic is dead in the water because they'll never have access to your content. Now with this robotic technology, with the AI that we're using, this will change everything. I'm going to actually fly to 4 different countries with that content we created and see if we can find. Obviously, we have a sales agency, but we see we'll see how the distribution there will get excited to kind of what's the percentage of going, let's say 5% to what level we can slide the percentage of distribution by using this technology. So it's really exciting.
Well, I mean, Reem, it's in a lot of ways we're kind of talking about the same thing, which is, you're not sure which art installation is going to resonate. So you've got to curate kind of a broad kind of range of different types of art. It could be dance, it could be music, it could be spoken word. So tell me how you approach that from the Art Center standpoint to really capture what's happening here in UAE right now.
There is something really important. You need to support the local artist. And you need to bridge the experience of local artists with international artists. That's why we do residencies. From one end, it is to share the experience of the artist through workshop and panels and talks with the local community. But at the same time, supporting the local artist is crucial in the storytelling process and in the nuances of the storytelling. So Naila is telling the story from a very local perspective as well, but that can resonate globally and taking into consideration the nuances. And I think this is the best way to bridge the gap. When we program, first, we need to like it. We need to be inspired by it. And we need to know how authentic it is and how in line it is with our values. I work also as in the selection committee of the Berlin Film Festival. And now there is more awareness towards the authenticity of the voice that's telling the story.
Yes.
So we watch films from all over the world. So if a film is made, let's say, in Pakistan, and the director has been, grew up and is from France and has no connection, even if the film is good, we question this. How authentic is it, this representation and this nuance, when it's put on a global stage? So these are all the things that we take into consideration. And on top of it, how inspired will we be, and can we inspire the local community? What is it that we can get from that? And what is it that we can give, because it is a cultural exchange at the same time.
And that's what I was going to say. That exchange is really fascinating in your film when I look at fulfillment, because the way that you tell these stories, each one of them references a different type of community. You've got a colony of bees, then you've got a community that is in a sustainable city, and then you've got these pods of dolphins. But each one, in each story, animals, people are coming together to really socialize. And one of the benefits is that we all in climate have to work outside of our organizational lines in order to succeed. We're required to lean on other people. So I think that was a big part of the message that I took away, is it doesn't matter what type of being you are, whether you're a bee or a dolphin or a human, you seek out that type of community. Yeah. I mean, so how do you, we were so engaged you forgot to pick up the mic. It's interesting to me, is that something that's valuable to you, to really look at how people come together and the way that they work as part of a community?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how change happens, right? It's the community that makes those efforts. And I think it would be nice when you have a tipping effect or a trickling effect where your work inspires others and then it just unfolds. And as I said, like, if you lend your material to let me put it this way. There was a film that I made, maybe not related to sustainability. It was still a social cause. very heavy about, child abuse.
Yeah.
And this is why brand equity plays such an important role. And I'll tell you why it's important, because going back to community, that is. So when I did it by myself, first of all, I couldn't film it. I faced a lot of censorship issues, and this is really interesting. Then I thought, who can come on board and create this brand equity which will help me really film it as it is without any censorship and still get applauded for it? Seems like an oxymoron, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, let me go to the Ministry of Social Affairs. Bang, I go to them. They had no issues. They loved it. They, I didn't shoot the film yet. They saw the script, so they came on board. The next people that came on board was UNICEF. So you have UNICEF, you have the Ministry of Social Culture. Then I shot the film. Guess what? It was about pedophilia. Very heavy topic, you know. Used symbolism, was very respectful. But just because of that, those two entities, they took that film and it got over 70 festivals around the world.
Yeah.
Lots of initiatives used it, so it had that tipping effect. So my advice is to reach more communities. A community can come together and make a film, but how do you amplify that? Is through people who have what I call firepower and PR muscle. So find those who do. Like today, this is a great example of today. I'm here today because I thought, oh, wait a minute, I've worked with Mubadala before. They don't know about my film. And it took one call to say, hi Mohammed, how are you? I have a film which I think would be great for you. We also won at the Cannes Corporate and Media Award, the Silver Dolphin. Ironically, we have dolphins. That was a coincidence. Would you consider, screening it? And you guys watched it and you guys liked it, and I'm here. And now because of this, people are now more aware of it. It just becomes like, cause and effect.
Yeah, but we talk about this all the time, the advocacy that you get for a difficult issue. And we just had people up on the stage from the World Wildlife Fund talking about the 6th great extinction. And so when you've got these powerful stories and you're trying to both kind of inform and educate, you need partners. And it could be partners for production, or it could be partners for distribution, or it could just be partners because they have access to an audience that maybe doesn't know your art. So I would say, Reem, what do you see happening at the Art Center here that you think is unique to UAE?
Wow, that's a great question. I think you spoke about partnership, and I think it's really important, but it's giving a voice to artists that are not on the commercial arena and who have a different type of format when presenting their arts that is not something that we're necessarily used to.
Yep.
And what is important in this, and what we think we're bringing, is to be open to different kind of conversation and different kind of arts, so that to inspire people into being brave and trying to find different means to tell their stories or to share their stories. So I think innovation, creativity is what we bring, but also, and this is the strength of the residency, and I think we're quite unique in the region when it comes to performing arts residencies, is the collaborative experience that the artists have with the community and vice versa.
Sure.
You spend time with the artists, you talk to them, you share a meal with them, you go to their panels and workshops, but also the artists get to know the city in a way that they haven't. Usually artists come here, they perform, they leave. But this is not how you really build bridges. You build bridges by asking them to spend some time, meet the students, meet the community, have a dinner with them. So answering your question, what we bring, what's unique about what we do is the different type of conversations, and also being uncomfortable with an art that being comfortable enough to say, I don't like it.
Yes.
This is not for me. This is too... it's disturbing me. And to have the liberty to say that.
Well, we'd have a number of difficult conversations on this stage precisely because of that. You have to bring up complex issues. You have to look at challenges. And what's interesting about film, in one instance, you're sitting in a darkened room with other people, having, light is flickering in front of your eyes, right? You're having that shared communal experience. The same is true in an art center when you see performative dance or when you hear an orchestra. It's a convening of people. You agree to show up at this time. And so we've agreed to show up in COP. You have more people from more countries than you have at any other time in the year. So what does that mean to you as an artist to be able to tap into this audience? Because I think the more specific you are in your art, the more universal the message often is. So how do you respond to that?
That just did a 360 in my head right now.
Yeah.
So having been raised and brought up here, never in my million years, and the city of Dubai itself has so many different nationalities, and as a UAE national, I do sometimes feel like we're not as integrated. Well, we are now more than ever. Like we weren't integrated for the longest time. You go to an event, you're like, oh wait, there's another local there. It's like a little. I don't know. I don't have to censor myself.
But it does become a cosmopolitan city in a lot of ways.
Yes. And now that it's a bit, we're more open in the sense that Emiratis are more integrated with expats, it is quite interesting. For example, I'll give you an example. I'm shooting my next film, which is quite macabre. It's magical realism. It's about the 5 stages of death through the ear of a woman who has tinnitus. And if it wasn't for this city, I wouldn't have an 80-plus female orchestra band called Firdaus playing for this film.
Wow.
Through the composition of 2-time Oscar winner A.R. Rahman. Here, it happened because of this space we're staying in. I mean, it's wild. It's completely wild.
It's a convening city.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's the interesting part, right? I mean, that's one of the things that's unique about Dubai.
I mean, it's not deliberate, but I want to say something funny about the film. It takes a place where everything is sustainable because they use rocks and pots and clay, It's just the nature of that film. So I think I could probably find an angle there. But
I mean, part of the angle there is that sustainability has now gotten to the point where you can absorb it into your art. And that's a big victory.
But I would like to add to this, and I'm sure you also talk about this, art and business. It's called show business. So it's like, how do you find, and I'm going through this myself, because the film that I just made is not too commercial, it's not too art house, it just kind of flirts in the middle space. So positioning becomes really tough, but at the same time, I have to respect the fact that there were investors who believed in me, and I have to find a way to get that money back. Hoping that AI, the robot, would save me this time, right? Hopefully. But moving forward, we need to create artwork, whether it's an installation, documentary film, whatever that is, that could be obviously supported by partners, but then me as a filmmaker, myself as a film producer, how do I produce films that are sustainable financially? Because if I, kind of start burning the forest down, no pun intended, with my investors' money, my reputation is really wild these days, especially with the net. I will need to be very careful to find a topic that I'm super passionate about, that has an impact, and that can still be financially sustainable and can impact, as you said, the world we live in. And so it's so many different checkpoints.
So I'm going to make a leap here, and it's an unusual one, but you're inspiring me. One of the things we talked about at COP is the need for new financial tools, because we're trying to solve problems that people haven't seen before. So banks need to be different. Concessionary financing at a lower rate needs to be different. The way that we were talking about it is that every project has to have sustainable, profitable growth. So if you think about that from an art standpoint, sustainable in that we can keep doing this. Profitable because it changes you, has an impact on you, and you grow. And so each project has that opportunity. And that's what I wanted. I'll go to you, Reem, for this one. The technology is there for virtually any person to create art. You're not bound by you're not limited by a lack of technology. So how do you see that opportunity for people here if they have a story to tell, especially one that's related to the environment? What's your recommendation? How does somebody who maybe hasn't made art before approach the ability to tell a story and maybe create a piece of art?
Watch art to start with, encourage the artists that are bringing their work to you. There's a lot of effort that is being made, and that starts at a very young age. We work with schools for this purpose, because if you want to support artists into making art, you need also to create an audience for it. And you need, I don't want to use the word educate, but it makes it part of their routine and their culture to watch performances, to go to the cinema, to watch independent work. And that's the role of smaller entities that have independent film festivals, to have, a platform for work that is not commercial, but is not also very independent. So what do we do with this? So we need to create a platform for it. And it's important to note that the UAE has done a big leap when it comes to saying that supporting arts is part of the growth of the creative economy. So now we have a term that we're using more often, which is creative economy. And this is something that we've been trying to say for a long time. When you support artists, when you give funding for the artists, this is part of the growth of the economy. They come here, they stay in a hotel, you bring catering. There's so much around it. And on top of it, they're the best cultural ambassadors. So let's work on our younger generation and with the schools to create an audience. And also, this is a big challenge I think every artist and filmmaker face is funding.
Yeah.
And I've been coming to the UAE even before living here because there were some of the biggest film festivals in the region, and now they're not here anymore, and also funding, and their funding is not here anymore, so you need to find alternative way to fund. But funding is very crucial. And when you fund, you also can set the tone of what is it that you want to support. If I want to make a film that talks about climate change, I need to find a platform that supports this kind of thematic, this kind of topic.
Well, I want to go back because you're raising another issue, which we had a very famous architect here, and she came back to the region. One of the reasons why she came back is she wanted to tap into and to a certain extent protect the culture, so you still retain a sense of place, so that it feels like it's an Emirati culture, so that you get to experience the things that have been part of the culture for generations, right? So it's interesting to think in terms of how to tap into that and have that voice. So what's the opportunity here to really look for other female filmmakers, for younger filmmakers, to take that and capture that unique perspective of what it's like to be in country, in culture, when you're talking about making art?
So I think in my case, I mean, there are not many of us, let's be honest. I think there's, the active ones are 6. I'm sure there are a lot of them that will come out. But I mean, active, like that's their bread and butter. That's how they survive.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and kudos to them, hats off. So for instance, in the film that I just finished, which is going to be out in all cinemas around the Arab world, MENA region, February 1, it's a unique sense that it's a cross-cultural film about an Emirati family, UAE national family, where they feel that they got a curse on them, like what we call the evil eye. And she engaged, someone's laughing. I know. Yeah. And they engage a British doctor, Jefferson Hall, from Oppenheimer.
Oh.
I mean, they didn't just take him out of that film, but we cast him. And it wasn't, sorry to say this, it wasn't the white guy coming to save us. It was him coming to get lost with us. And I think that's what's beautiful about this. Like, it does encourage tolerance and gives room for debate for different schools of, thoughts and ideologies and whatnot. So there's a big clash of culture in the film. There's interesting, nuances of religion in the film as well. But, in 3 words, people say, oh, it's exorcism in Islam. It's not. It is part of it, but it's more about mental health, and it's about how the UAE culture was integrated by this British doctor and how they're trying to save this boy from whatever curse he's going through. Yeah. So through that process, it was very humbling to see how locals and expats work together. A lot of them couldn't speak each other's language, so we had interpreters on set. It was a madhouse. I loved it. But going back to your question, because I saw that there's when I screened the film, I was approached by a lot of Saudi women because I was there when I had my premiere. And a lot of them wanted to sign up. They're like, is there a program where we can come and there's like a mentorship program where we can come and watch you and other Arab filmmakers direct? And there's that bridge that we need where we can, connect directors, female or male, whatever it is, to the younger community, so they feel inspired and they're able to do.
They have to see themselves.
I'm a bit worried because I still haven't taken my film to the censors and get it passed. I don't know if it's going to get a PG-15 or 18. I'm just hoping it just passes,
Well, but I think that's what happens, right? You push the envelope to a certain point and you see how far you can go where it's commercial.
Yeah. I have a sorry to cut you, but I have a saying. I always say, always poke, but don't stab.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm always gently poking. I'm not stabbing.
I think the climate action community would agree with that, right? I mean, there's you may not be aware of this, but in the battle to mitigate climate, 2030 is a very big year. That's where we can take stock of how close we are to keeping the rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees. And so we can see on that trajectory, and we're not there yet. So that idea of poking and prodding for change is something that we're seeing all the time, because people don't like change. And sometimes through art, you can really draw them out, and it may be confrontational art, it might be collaborative art, but those children need to see themselves. They need to be able to picture themselves doing what you do. So in the last couple of minutes that we have left, I know we only have about 4 or 5 minutes, flash forward, tell me what you would like to see in this marriage of art and and science to really drive some of these issues forward.
So I'll make an announcement now.
Okay.
Since I'm not an expert in the fields of rain and floods and acid that can come with it, I am working on a screenplay, and I would like an expert in the field. They'll be paid to support, in the sense that it's called Story of a Rain, and it's about a rain that hits this peninsula in 1921 and causes a skin disease, almost like what we went through with COVID, right? But this is more because of drought. So there's like years and years of drought. So it's pretty much, finally, my love for the environment and horror are coming together in a movie. But again, it's very sensational. There's a love story in the background, but it also kind of has so many different layers, and the big kind of vibrating theme is climate change.
On this very stage, we've had 5 or 6 conversations about floods. We've had the unintended consequences of what happens when you try one solution, et cetera. So I think you're seeing a lot of overlap in the sense of urgency and the willingness to try things. And I think you probably are picking up a lot of that. How about you, Reem? What do you see in the next few years as your organization evolves, as you evolve as an artist? Can you put that under the backdrop of this kind of the pressures that are going along with how quickly we need to move to address climate change?
There are 2 things here. There's the curation part, which is, I think, quite obvious, is to be very conscious in the way we curate our program, and to take this into consideration. But also leading by example is very important, whether we're a filmmaker or an arts organization, is to think of the green alternative solutions when we are doing any work, whether we're going on a production or when we're bringing our artists here. So this is important. But I want to stress on something really, really crucial for me, at least, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. It's important to remind people and remind ourselves that our culture in the Arab world is full of stories, and we're very good with storytelling. And I think Arab mothers, for instance, are the most sustainable ever. There's nothing that goes to waste. And that's why it's important to tell our stories, to tell them in our voice. We love our sea. We love our nature, we love our olive trees. And to give us the platform to support them, to share these stories that have a lot of history and a lot of social nuances, but also with being more conscious about, a greater message is our relationship with nature and what can we do. But it has to come by encouraging us to tell our stories our way. And to go back to the roots of what we really are. We mentioned this in our conversation before, is going back. So just if I want to give a summary, is being conscious in our creation, to lead by example and to support us and support artists to tell their stories in their own way with being conscious about climate change.
I appreciate that. I think that idea of looking back to go forward, to tap into those cultural storytelling devices, I think that's exceptionally important. And as I said before, I think the more specific you are, the more ultimately universal those stories are, because we all have that experience. So I want to thank both of you so much for a very interesting, provocative discussion. And I would absolutely encourage you to see their films. Go to the movies, pay to actually see a film, because artists like this want to be able to do this exclusively. They want to make more films in the time that they have. So thank you so much for both of you for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
And I do have 2 films on Netflix. One's called Animal. Unfortunately, it's not about animal preservation, it's about narcissism. And the second one's called The Shadow. So,
Wonderful.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.